tired of ads crashing your comedy podcast party? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
Okay guys, welcome to Heavy Metal Tones episode 4. This week's episode is black metal. It's one of those polarizing subgenres of the metal community. You either love it or you hate it. There's really no in between. I used to absolutely hate it. I couldn't understand it, couldn't get into it. But we'll talk about that a little bit on how I come to really love it. But yes, where do we all begin? Now, the reason I've brought this subject up so early on in the series is that it's going to warm up here in Canberra, so I head towards summer. And strangely, and again, this is in part 3, you'll find out why, but I always get very in the mood for some very dark black metal when it gets into summer. I know, weird, isn't it? But it is the case. So where do we begin, guys? I think we begin at the beginning. In the stages of this wonderful genres that we listen to in metal, and there's so many of them, you have to look at the progenitors or the original people. I mean, firstly, you've got to start with Black Sabbath. So Black Sabbath bursts on the scene and they create this album with music that's never been quite heard before. They weren't doing anything new musically. They were using the augmented fourth and diminished fifth tritones. So it's the devil's interval. It banned by the Pope back in the 13th century just for the fact that it was thought to be an evil sound. It was because it's a dissonant sound. So it's not an easy, likable piece of music, this interval. You'll know as soon as you hear it. If you listen to Black Sabbath's first song on the first album, you'll hear it straight away. It's the flat fourth, so augmented fourth and flat fifth. And so they made these albums, and they moved away from that sort of sound, became more heavier. Although Tony Iommi still used them, and then after that, the first band to really do it, to make it, to put their name to the genre, is Venom. I adore Venom as a band. I think they're probably my second favourite metal band out of Iron Maiden. They straddle two genres, Venom. If you've never had a chance to listen to them, I highly recommend going out and listen to their albums. First album was released in 1981. December of 81. I'll just double check my notes. Here is Russell. I wrote it down. Yes, December of 81. Welcome to Hell. And that particular album, with Mantis Jeffrey Dunn on guitars, Kronos or Conrad Lent on bass and vocals, and Abaddon or Tony Bray on drums, they straddled the new wave of British heavy metal movement, but they also were born and brought in by the DIY ethos of punk. And if you listen to the first two albums particularly, they are punk albums. Interviewing with Jeff later on, he says that they were more a punk band than a metal band, and I think I sort of agree with them. They weren't really new wave of British heavy metal, although they are, because they're in that particular point of time, but I think they step outside that more. You could never say that Venom were like Iron Maiden, or Iron Maiden like Venom, or Venom were like Praying Mantis or Tigers of Pang Tang or Angel Witch. The closest they were to them was Witchfind, but Witchfind were had closer derivation to Black Sabbath, to be honest, and same with Witchfinder General, more doom-based Black Sabbath stuff, music. Anyway, they released this album, Welcome to Hell. Picture it, it's got a pentagram on the front, and it's got the goat of Mendes, which is the Baphomet, which is the leading symbol of the Church of Satan on it. Terrifying if you'd really, this had never been there before, and so you get the album, you put it on, and think, what is this going on? I'm going to put it on, and I remember I didn't come into the band via them. I came into the band via their third album, which is their epic album, their concept album, Welcome to Hell, At War with Satan. But really, truly, their this first album with you've got tracks on it like 1,000 Days in Sodom, which then on to inspire the name for the band of Sodom, In League with Satan, and there's a track that's not on it but was released with the single, which is my favourite Venom song, which is In Nomine Satanus, which is a satanic prayer almost. They were saying they were doing the satanic stuff purely to shock. It hadn't been done before, and they wanted to find something that was different. And musically, the first two albums are extremely raw. They're not, if you're gonna want to listen to clean, polished heavy metal, don't go looking for those albums, because I still want you to anyway. But if you're looking for them, that sound, you're not going to get it. You're going to get, there are sort of eponymous stories that Conrad got a chainsaw when it's in the recording in the studios for Neat Records, because they were from Newcastle, up north in the north of England, and he cut through a door with a chainsaw to get that sound that he wanted that he couldn't get with his guitars. Is it true? It could just be one of those lovely rumours, but who knows. Then the year following, they released Black Metal, the self-titled album for the new subgenre. I think an even better album than Welcome to Hell. Really, it has quite simply the best extreme metal song ever made on it. It's got Countess Bathory. It's sing-along. It's bloodthirsty. It's angry. It's demonic. It's delicious. All the D's are there. And it really, along with, it's so many memorable tracks on that album. It's just hard to really, what can I say? You've got, I'm going to be here 1 second. I'm going to pause for a second because I've gone absolutely blank. Sorry, guys. I had an old man moment. I made my notes. I know this stuff inside out. It's my favourite bands, but I didn't want to get it wrong, Anyway, I'm not going to edit this shit, so just enjoy this. So Black Metal, Countess Bathory, Don't Burn the Witch. These stuff. And then, of course, right at the end of the album, they gave us a taster, as I said to before, for At War with Satan. Wow, what an album that is. I remember my mate Crazy Melvin. I had two mates, Crazy Melvin and Non-Crazy Melvin. That's a different story. But Crazy Melvin gave me his copy of At War with Satan. And you could read it a different way. You could think At War with Satan, like against, or at war. But it basically means on his side facing the angels. And it starts, it's atmospheric. The whole A-side is one song. It's just wonderful. And I first listened to the album walking home back to my squat that I was living in at the time with friends in Wimbledon, across the railway tracks. I put it on with my headphones on because I had it on cassette. and it scared the living shit out of me. And I was staying in a house with no lights. It was all candles. I'm not Christian. I actually come from a mixed religious background. My mother was a Jew, my father's Christian. So I'm sort of mixed or lapsed, or either way, Christian and Judaic faith. So I was never really a religious person. But I grew up in a time in the 70s when we were a bit more... I mean, my father would stay up late with me, because bedtime back in the 70s when I was a kid having 4 other brothers was like free range, do what you want. But my dad loved horror movies, but he wouldn't watch them on his own, so we'd stay up late and watch. I'd watch Hammer Horror every Tuesday and Wednesday night on a weekday, the Hammer Horror movie or something else. And then we had kids programs that were terrifying. We used to watch a program called Sapphire and Steel with Joanna Lumley in it, and it was just, again, I can't describe it. You need to go and YouTube it. It was about a couple of even I don't know what it was about really. It was these interdimensional horror stories. These characters were named after elements and they could travel through space and time, and it was just amazing. But it was terrifying. So with early Doctor Who, we were scared by that. There were things in it that we just lived in an area where kids were scared. It was sort of like almost a rites of passage. So I loved that kind of thing. So when it was given to me, for that to scare me then must have been something, because I'd never been scared with music before. I'd been scared with audiobooks, listening to the Edgar Allan Poe audiobooks from the library with my brother in the dark as a kid. Fond memories. Being so scared I couldn't leave the room to go to the toilet. When I was watching Salem's Lot when I was 9, I had to a 9-year-old having to be escorted to the toilet. I mean, this is funny. So what I'm saying is they really had a very heavy and demonic sound. And so it was quite shocking. And when someone does something new, it either does one or two things. It either disappears into the ether and nothing happens, or someone hooks into it and thinks, I really want to listen to more of this. Now, musically, they weren't doing what the black metal bands did further on into the early 90s, as we'll get to in a minute. They weren't doing trim picking and blast beat drums and guttural vocals. They were just doing heavy rock, heavy metal, punk-driven sounds. For a 3-piece, they had a very big sound. I mean, when they did their 7 Dates of Hell tour, Metallica supported them at the Hammersmith Odeon. They used to make their own pyrotechnics. Often the stages would get completely ruined because the fireworks that Kronos and Mantis and Abaddon wanted to do, because they thought, you come to see a show, you want a big show. And they really wanted to give a big show, like Maiden do now. They wanted value for money, and that was a lot to do with pyrotechnics. They did lots of fantastic photo shoots of skulls and blood and inverted crosses, and again, this was really to scare. I don't think any of them are, and I know Jefferson, I know that Tony wasn't. I can't speak for Kronos, but I don't think that they were devil worshippers. And even if they were, who cares? Again, it's a religion. It's not genuinely. They're not all sacrificing babies at dawn. All right, at midnight. It is again only a religion, and you choose to follow it or you choose not to. Either way. So, what happens? How does there a leap from the sound that you had then to the sound that you get now? Well, we're coming up to the break, so we'll have a chat once we get from the other side. I'll see you on the other side about that one, and we'll talk about the next phase of the black metal sort of genre. I know, guys, you're thinking, I want to buy a new CD. I'd like to buy the new vinyl version of the Iron Maiden album. I wouldn't mind a t-shirt. Everyone's locked down. Where am I going to go? I don't want to necessarily wait for months from Amazon or pay through the nose at JB Hi-Fi, who just going to go to one big conglomerate company. I want to keep it local. Well, I would go where I go, to Landspeed Records. They're in Garima Place. They've been there since the early 90s. They know everything there is about record collecting, and they can get whatever you want for you. They are a fantastic bunch of guys. Enthusiastic, friendly, and informative. You can buy from them online at landspeed.com.au. That's landspeed.com.au. And I'm sure they'll get it for you. Even if you send them a message, they can work something out. They always get what I need. They're the home of the Record Store Day. I think that's the only place in Canberra that really should go to on Record Store Day, is Landspeed Records. Yep, that's me. If you're looking for stuff, head there. I know I always do, and I always will. Cheers, guys, for looking after me. Welcome, guys, back to part 2 of this episode about black metal. So, the Norwegian bands, the ones that we all know when we think of black metal now. If you listen to this podcast, you're not either new to heavy metal and just getting into it, or you already know much about it. If you know much about it, you know your black metal. Let's look at the genres trope, shall we? Corpse paint, so that's the black and white death paint. That's the lots of blood-stained leather, big 9-inch nails, festooning the armbands. If you look at early Slayer and you see some Kerry King, he has that as well. There's lots of that going on. It's lots of inverted crosses, spitting blood on stage. They have the it's like almost a festy, rotten, dank, just come out of the depths of the hell of holes in the ground to slither around in the nights, in the moonlight. It's almost how you feel with that. That's the image. Now, that image comes about early on in the Norwegian movement from like 89 through to about 93. Because what they were doing then with bands, and I'm going to get my bit of paperwork, Russell. Bands like Burzum, Dark Throne, Immortal, Satyricon, Enslaved, Mayhem, Emperor, and Gorgoth, to name a few. What they were doing is they were creating this. They wanted something. I think sadly, the genre is marred by some very sad events in the early 90s, about 1991, with the death of some of the protagonists, either to murder or to suicide, and to some ritualistic church burnings. I'm not going to go into depth into these stories. I don't want to do that. There is plenty of other podcasts and YouTube channels and web pages that are connected to that. There are some good movies and documentaries. I don't really want to sully this story. I really don't. This podcast. The reason I don't want to do that is that it's got nothing to do with the music. If I was to delve down into that rabbit hole, what I do then is I start to talk about other things, and I'll walk away from the whole point of this podcast, and that is to talk about the music of it. And so back to where we're coming from. So those horrible things aside, the young boys that were creating this music, they were deep down. I think they were quite, not twisted is the wrong word. I think they were very sad characters, and they were very lonely characters, and they were very drawn into the ethos and the story and the heritage of Norwegian Viking, non-Christian, non-religion in general's story. I think they wanted a pagan. They were pagans. This, be honest, black metal at its root core is a pagan music. Now, pagan doesn't mean sacrifice. It doesn't mean ungodliness. It means to be worshipping something that's not of an organized religion. It's worshipping nature. It's worshipping the world and the way it turns, and and at a more non-esoteric level. And so they delved into their history of their beautiful nation. Norway is a wonderful nation and has some beautiful heritage in its, and I think they grabbed that. That's how I see it. They grabbed that, and they gravitated to the music of Venom and to Black Sabbath and to Witchfind and to Diamond Head and all those new wave of British heavy metal bands, actually, and just took it up one extra notch. You know, they went from singing clean vocals to these screaming guttural noises. I mean, if you look at any of the videos, like from bands like Immortal and from Burzum, and they're always in forests in the snow, they're always in their corpse paint, they're always scuttling around like a creature from the dark. And I think that's how they saw themselves. I think they saw themselves in a darker, more twisted way, and those people that created the atrocities in the movement were just like anyone else. Sadly, had mental conditions, and this way of expressing themselves, and it became very tribal. The murder and the church burnings was tribalistic. You know, one band didn't think the other band was quite hardcore enough, so what we're going to do, I'm going to go kill the lead singer. Let's go burn some churches to prove that we're not Christian and we're anti-Christian and want our nation to be back, or to be back to that paganism before Christianity. So that's where that sound is born. The vocal. Let's go to the vocals. Okay, so where people can't enjoy black metal, they can't get into it, is that the vocals are too extreme. I was the same for a long time. If I couldn't read the lyric, I couldn't read the band's name because it was sort of way it was the italicism of the name was all scribbled. You couldn't read. Look, some of the extreme metal bands, you can't read the artwork is so extreme you can't read the name of the band. I was like, oh well, I don't want to know. I can't hear what they're saying. I'm lyrically driven. I come from a prog background. I want to hear what the story of the song. But then I had an epiphany. I had a moment, and it was listening to not a Norwegian black metal band for the first wave, but it was the first wave of a Swiss band. Now I'm thinking, you're all gonna know this band, Hellhammer, right? They then became Celtic Frost, and I was listening to them thinking, hang on, the vocals are like an instrument. I love an aggressively over-tortured, over-driven, heavy guitar. This is exactly what this is. I can't hear what he's saying, but I can hear his tonality and his passion and his anger, and it is beautiful in an aggressive way. It really is. I don't need to know often what they're singing about. I can look at the lyric sheet. I don't really care. And so that's how I look at it. I think you guys should go out that way and do the same. If you can't get into it, don't think about it as a vocal point. Think about it as another instrument within the band. Then you get the guitars. And again, what they did in 1990 onwards, they moved back to those double tritone intervals, the augmented fourth and the diminished fifth, and they used a combination of what we call trem picking. So it's like they're replicating the tremolo arm on the guitar with a picking technique, and that combined with the tritone becomes this eerie, tortured, cold, spacious, demonic sound. I mean, only 100 or so years before, people were listening to Wagner's Ring Cycle. Now he's using diminished fifths and augmented fourths. He's making this cold, wintry sound. And I think, again, also, so were some of the early, like I said, Mayhem and Burzum. They were doing these sounds. They were using that that sound to create this cold, and it never been done before to the limit they did, and it still stands to me as some of the most alongside the punk explosion, the way they took that sound. To me, the black metal scene is very much like, it's probably nothing like it on earth musically in our genres anyway. I mean, you've got now spawned other genres, death metal, thrash metal. I mean, there's so many. I could go on about, technical death, progressive death, symphonic black metal, progressive black metal. I mean, you could twist it however you want. It has to start somewhere. And then you get to the drums. Now, everyone assumes that, well, I did for a long time, that blast beat drums, which is that really stark, fast, aggressive drumming in sharp intervals, was invented by the black metal movement. It wasn't. It was actually invented by the drummer of Napalm Death, Mick Harris. My brother actually knew the lead singer quite well for a long time, actually, Lee Dorian. So I got to see Cathedral at their very last gig at the Sydney Soundwave. I got to see one of their very first gigs when I think they were just signed at the Tufnell Park Dome in North London with the bill. Listen to this bill, I mean, unbelievable. It was Enslaved. It was Cathedral, Candlemass with Messiah Marcolin. I actually bought him a beer. But one of the best moments of my life, actually. And one other band, which leaves me a little bit. There was a very support band. I think it was something like to do with Necro something. But again, I can't remember. I had too many beers that day, I think, probably. Plus, I was in awe of Cathedral and Candlemass. So I'm so sorry. I absolutely let it. Well, that whole thing, my whole train of thought went there when I just went into a daydream about that gig I went to. Anyway, what I was saying basically is that, it's a sound that has been copied, and the blast beats I thought were there. No, it's Napalm Death. So the drums you get in a lot of the early black metal is proto blast beat, and I would probably say I reckon that Mick Harris was listening to that stuff. He may be, he may not be. It was around the same sort of time. I mean, you never know, do you? I don't want to take away someone's invention or importance within the genre. So if I've got that wrong, Mick, I'm really sorry. You can research it, but there's only so much you can research. You can't prove someone was listening to one thing or another. So that's the sound. It's cold, it's stark, it's drastic, but it's also beautiful in a nihilistic and so what I'm trying to say is, guys, go out there and give it a go. Find the first Burzum album, first Mayhem album. If you don't want to go that deep, as I said, Celtic Frost. Before that they were Hellhammer. There's At the Gates, sort of a thrashy band. I mean, a lot of people are not quite sure whether Venom was an extreme metal band or a thrash band. To me, they were an extreme band. They engineered the sound of thrash. A thrash comes from that first wave of thrash anyway. I think later thrash is more comical, but they created and they invented the extreme metal sound. They're now called. There's two versions of them now. You've got Venom and Venom Inc. Tony Doolan and Jeff are still. Tony Doolan came in once Kronos left. Primeval was the album onwards, and I still think Primeval was their greatest album of the Tony Doolan era. Demolition Man, he's called, a lovely, lovely guy. Tony, if you listen, I know we chat a lot. You're just one of life's true great musicians and a wonderful man. Philanthropic and friendly, just great. Anyway, enough name dropping from me. Yeah, so yes, try that. Get into it. Give it a go. Don't let it put you off. I mean, it scares some people, but you'll open the doors to a greater environment. You really, really will. There are. I mean, I can't name every band here on this particular podcast. I'll also be here all day. We're already going a bit longer today because I haven't even got yet to the reason why I mentioned Christmas at the front and summer, which I'm going to get to after the break. It's quite funny. It might be light-hearted compared to this sort of heavy sound of I'm talking about death and darkness and Satanism. Anyway, please give it a go. I'd love you to, if you do and you want to sort of some feedback, give me some, if you want me to give you some ideas, please email me at heavymetaltones@gmail.com. That's heavymetaltones@gmail.com. And I'd love, we can chat and I can give you some ideas, some good bands to start if you're not sure where to start. Or you can give me some feedback on what bands you think you love, and I'd love to listen to them. I may not have heard them. I haven't heard everything, so it'd be really, really good to go there. As I said, I hope you're not disappointed that I didn't go into depth into the more darker side of this genre. I don't want to in this podcast, and it's my podcast, so that's fine. Otherwise, I'll see you on the other side of the break with a bit of a laugh. I know, guys, you're thinking, I want to buy a new CD. I'd like to buy the new vinyl version of the Iron Maiden album. I wouldn't mind a t-shirt. Oh, everyone's locked down. Where am I going to go? I don't want to necessarily wait for months on Amazon or pay through the nose at JB Hi-Fi, who just going to go to one big conglomerate company. I want to keep it local. Well, I would go where I go, to Landspeed Records. They're in Garima Place. They've been there since the early 90s. They know everything there is about record collecting, and they can get whatever you want for you. They are a fantastic bunch of guys, enthusiastic, friendly, and informative. You can buy from them online at landspeed.com.au. That's landspeed.com.au, and I'm sure they'll get it for you. Even if you send them a message, they can work something out. They always get what I need. They're the home of the Record Store Day. I think that's the only place in Canberra that really should go to on Record Store Day, is Landspeed Records. Yep, that's me. If you're looking for stuff, head there. I know I always do, and I always will. Cheers, guys, for looking after me. Welcome back, guys. Again, this is a slightly longer episode. I really am struggling to get them to 30 minutes. I've been given some feedback that you try and keep it the same time every episode, but really I just can't, because I'm going to ramble here and there, and there information I want to get in. I don't want to squeeze and miss things out. So if it's a little bit uneven in length, I've looked at some other podcasts and they're pretty cool with that. Anyway, the funny side. Now, I mentioned the reason I get into the black metal when it gets warmer. I love Christmas. I said to you earlier, I'm from a mixed faith family. My mother's a Jew, but she loved Christmas. Loved presents, loved giving, just loved the family get-together aspect of it. We didn't practice the Judaic faith in my house because of Dad's Christianity, and I think Mum just kept it to herself. Anyway, that just a different thing. But I, every year, put lots of lights up outside my house. I do it because my father-in-law does it. I do it for the kids in the neighbourhood. I do it for my own artistic self. I also just love it. I actually also, and this is going to make you laugh, man, guys, but I collect ceramic Christmas Santa cookie jars. Don't ask again. You don't need to know why. It's just something that I've done for years, and I just love it. It's a quirky side of me that is just always going to be the case. I've got about 30 of them now. Anyway, so one Christmas, it takes me about a week and a half, maybe two, to get the lights up all perfect how I want them outside the house, and inside the house as well. And it was about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer now, and I was putting the Christmas lights on the side windows, and I had as I've always got music plugged in, and I was listening to something, and for some reason I was listening to some metal, and it clicked over in the Spotify thing, and it goes, you want to listen to this? And on came Celtic Frost. I can't tell you the name of the song. It just came on, and I'm standing there. Picture this. It's hot summer. It's 30 odd degrees. I've got Christmas lights in my hand. There's, it's meant to be a time of peace, love, and Christianity, and I'm listening to the darkest, dankest, fastest, foulest heavy metal I could listen to, and I absolutely loved it. I remember opening the window, shouting through to my wife and going, telling her, the delicious irony, people. Pick the irony. It's beautiful. It's almost, I could have spread it on toast. I was like, this is so deliciously counterpointed, so juxtaposition to itself. I can't tell you. And it makes me giggle. And it makes me giggle all the time. People will think, oh, here's a Jew that loves Christmas that plays black satanic metal while he's putting these lights up. It's just wonderful. So every time it gets warm and we get nearer towards Christmas, I start thinking about satanic black metal. That's it. Now, I find it really amusing, and I just do. And now I can't wait to get my lights out, put on my Burzum or my Satyricon, early Satyricon. Later Satyricon's a bit easier to listen to, and they are brilliant live. Absolutely brilliant live. I had the privilege of seeing them at the Basement here in Canberra 3 or so years ago. Oh, amazing. I missed them at Soundwave because I was on a different stage. I couldn't get to that stage. But gosh, they were just, yeah. I got to see Witchery at the Gates and The Haunted a couple of years ago as well. And, by far the headline act, Witchery. And by far the highlight, Nosferatu. YouTube it, brilliant. Got a great photograph with the lead singer. He was a giant of a man, but so friendly. He hated Aussie beer. Don't blame him. Don't hate me for that. Anyway. So that's my funny story. I just think it's hilarious for me that the delicious irony, and I just said that's so thick and lush, the irony. If you could, I said, like, put it in a jar, spread it on your toast in the morning, it's that thick. Anyway, that's my chit-chat for the week on black metal. If I've missed anything, I apologise. It's a potted history. I may have missed stuff. I may have misread stuff. If you know more than I do, brilliant. As I said, get in touch with me and give me some information, some feedback. We're now on Spotify, soon to be on iTunes, iHeartRadio. I'm hoping to get a website up and ready soon as well. Thanks for coming on this journey. I really mean it, guys. I come from a really crappy audio to this. I've had great help, great feedback, great, keep up at it. And I think next week I'm gonna. I won't say what we're gonna do because I might change my mind. But I think we might look at influential vocalists, metal and non-metal, I reckon, and we'll have a chat about why they are so, what makes them so, and all that sort of stuff in between. Okay, you keep safe. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye, guys.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.